I just also want to let everybody know we have a hard stop at 1:50 because the board members have to go for a board briefing at 2:00. We don't have a quorum at this time. Hopefully we'll get one or two more people. So we will. All right, so we're going to go right to the chair's reports. All right, so I'll lead off. I'm not going to do a PCAC chair's report. I'll leave that for Lisa to take care of in her executive director's report. For the Long Island Railroad, earlier this week, Newsday ran a story regarding the condition of the Long Island Railroad's infrastructure, stating that much of it is in critical condition. Newsday tends to be overly sensational in their reporting, and there is only minor cause for concern. Of the Long Island Railroad's 600 bridges, viaducts, and tunnels, about 80 were rated to be in poor or marginal condition. The Long Island Railroad plans to spend approximately $600 million in the next MTA capital plan to address needed repairs. On the subject of infrastructure repairs, Amtrak is in the process of starting work in one of the two East River tunnels that will need major repair to be performed. While this tunnel is being taken out of service, only minor adjustments were needed to be made to the Long Island Railroad's Penn Station service. Regarding other work being performed, the Long Island Railroad has started a station spruce-up program with at least 10 stations completed to date. ADA work on the Babylon branch has been completed, with Massapequa Park being the last of the 4 stations to get a new elevator. Major work is currently underway at the Babylon station, and the Long Island Railroad recently released a contract to start work at the Hollis station. At the Long Island City Rail Yard, testing has begun on the flood wall. Ridership recovery on the Long Island Railroad is above projections, with October of 2024 showing 88% of the October 2019 numbers. On-time performance has also been impressive at 95% year to date, but unfortunately, we still don't have timed connections at Jamaica, so that doesn't necessarily reflect the rider's experience. I continue to serve on the Penn Station Working Advisory Group along with Lisa, Andrew, and Randy. It's encouraging that the group, organized by Amtrak, New Jersey Transit, and MTA, does seem receptive to consider some of the suggestions that we made on behalf of our riders. However, the future of any major renovations and/or expansion at Penn Station is uncertain, as we need to gauge how the incoming administration will view mass transit spending. And while not on my written report, I just want to remind everybody this weekend is SantaCom. So there will be no alcohol on Long Island Railroad trains, and that probably pertains to Metro North as well. And that will do it. Anybody have any questions on the report? All righty. We'll go down to, I believe, Andrew, you're up next.
Maddie has a question, Jerry.
All right.
Thank you, Brian. And in fact, I would give credit to Jerry, though, for making the Babylon Station 100% accessible. Thank you to everybody. God bless you.
All right. Anybody else? We good? Okay, Andrew, you're up.
Okay. Obviously, we're waiting with bated breath for January 5th and the start of congestion pricing. There are still at least 11 outstanding lawsuits pending. I understand there will be a hearing on one of them next week. Hopefully that doesn't delay the start of this project, because the funds are really, really needed. Even if it does go forward, Congressman, or as we call him, Gridlock Gottheimer from New Jersey, has threatened to introduce legislation in Washington to prevent New York from getting any federal transit funds if we go ahead with congestion pricing. I don't know that he has enough votes to do that, and I think it would be just a horrific precedent, but there is that overriding threat, and we need the program obviously in place before the new president takes office, who has vowed to kill it, and it's harder to kill it if it's in place. So we are set to start beginning progress on several projects. The 2nd Avenue subway tunneling has resumed to get up to 125th Street and Park Avenue, which will be an important phase in that project, obviously. CBTC on the A and C Fulton Street lines in Brooklyn will resume. And very importantly, CBTC on the BD, F&M along Avenue of the Americas is going to start. And that is so important because if you have it along Queens Boulevard and you have it along the Culver line in Brooklyn and you don't have it along Sixth Avenue, they all meet and stop. So it is important that progress happen on Sixth Avenue, and I'm happy to see that's happening. There will also be the start of many more accessible stations. There was obviously the pause during the pause, and 26 or 24 stations were stopped. 6 or at least 6 of them, I believe, are resuming right away. Hopefully as they have learned how to bundle the projects together and get them cheaper on each one, they can do a few more quickly, and that would be great. In addition, work has begun on both approaches to the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, which was awaiting funding from congestion pricing and is in desperate need of some work there. And if you ever use where it connects to to the Bell Parkway in Brooklyn, you'll see there are issues. So I'm happy to hear that that's resuming right away. President Sheridan announced that. The MTA has actually done some budget cutting and combination of things and paying off some earlier debt, and has saved in the area of $100 million annually, and will actually be when their capital program comes, they will have saved about $100 million, which is actually they will save about $500 million, which is amazing, and that's great to hear. You may have noticed this, but if you haven't, there has been a reduction in car cleaning from every day to every other day due to the drought. After the last few rainstorms, I think that may have abated the problem, and we may start to see daily cleaning again. And as I'm sure you've all heard, the R211Ss were pulled from the Staten Island Railway due to some signal issues. They haven't been put back yet, but I believe they will be back within a few weeks. And I'll stop with that. I don't know. It's going to take quite a while. What is the time frame to install CBTC along Sixth Avenue was Bert's question, and I don't know, but I can find out. Chris.
Just to let you know, Andrew, today we did have an opening at Queensboro Plaza, which
heard.
I was there, as well as Lisa and Jason Anthony.
Yeah, that's a long time coming, that one.
Yes, and I have to say, it looks very nice. We also know there are more coming in. We should be hearing more lists. He did announce a couple more, but I'm not going to say it because it will take us a year.
Yeah, and the upper level of Queensboro Plaza is quite a distance from the street, so that's great.
Yes,
Now we need Smith 9th Street really badly.
your mouth to God's ears.
Oh, Metzfeldt's point, especially because now we've got a new $765 million contract. So I figure that over 15 years, if he gives $1 million a year toward accessibility, that's Juan Soto, then that could help. I'm going to write him a letter. Yeah, they did the ribbon cutting for the soccer stadium. However, that whole development should be, in my opinion, part of the accessibility work at Metzfeldt's point, which is currently being, the subway station is being tied by the Mets owner, who I otherwise like, to the casino award at Metropolitan Park at Metzfeldt's point, which is not the same as the work to the Long Island Railroad Station, which hopefully will be in the package of accessibility that's included in the next capital plan.
So you think if they paid Juan Soto a little less, they could have paid for the make Willis Point accessible?
I think that Juan Soto could pay $1 million a year out of his salary over the next 15 years, take a tax deduction. I don't know if that would work. Maybe he could name the station after himself. He could then do the David Weprin bill and help us all out there. Shanifa, do you have his number? Do you need me to get out? I'm happy to reach out to him.
I think we have a couple of questions on the Zoom. And
Yeah,
I would,
not used.
oh,
So Metro North and the Long Island Railroad both reported new ridership records in October, and the numbers are over here. Yesterday, there was a press event which I watched on the channel, on the YouTube channel. And the governor was there and Jano and board member Zuckerman and some elected officials from Putnam County, and how great Metro North has been doing. The ridership is up. And they talked about the rebuilding of the station, and the town supervisor said he was a young kid and he worked as a carpenter when they did this back in the 90s. So a lot of positive things over there. I didn't mention it, but the Metro North's taken an 8-car train of their M8 cars. They're the ones that run and outside of the metro area, that's actually from Mount Vernon in New Rochelle, I think. Was it New Rochelle with the third rail changes? I get those two mixed up. Pelham, and they're red cars, and they decorated them with lights, and they're running it for the holidays. I haven't seen it in person, but I've seen photos of it. And the extra service that they're going to be running for the holiday period, it's all mentioned over here. I got to ride the Metro North employee train for the holidays last week. It was very nice. The employee, they go to certain locations over certain tours, and the employees come on the train, and there are snacks for them. They get to meet the senior management and other people there, and I got a chance to stand with the president and wish them all happy holiday. Very well attended. This year it was a little bit different because they added a train set of cars that are typically used and tacked onto the end of a train that runs between New York and Albany. And so those cars couldn't be used this year now because of the work going on, and it's supposed to be going on in the yard, Sunnyside Yard, and taking one of the tunnels out. So they gave them to Metro North to use on the train. And it was a very nice event. So I'll yield back my time.
I think Karen had a question.
Yeah, I'm here. Hello, everyone. So 2 questions. The first question is, have we given any thought to what messaging is going to look like to the public regarding, well, fares are going up again, but are we going to be tying it to the reduction in congestion pricing, or just how are we prepared? Because there's already some murmurs about, oh, there's congestion pricing and, we're going to have increased fares.
I would say stay tuned for a little later in the agenda for the PCAC proposals.
Okay.
And then we're going to go into some detail on that.
Okay.
But Shanifa, however, may be able to address some that in the community. I don't know if that's part of your presentation, but that may be part of the Q&A.
Okay. And the second question, I know it wasn't in your report, Andrew, but I was just curious, with the power loss yesterday, has there been any thought to how to respond quicker and evacuate people on the trains and the tunnels, of course, safely, but in a more timely fashion, or I guess as fast as possible?
Yes, I've heard a lot about that power failure. And today I got texts from people who were stuck on the Manhattan Bridge because the power failure happened again this morning, and there was debris on the track at DeKalb. I mean, there was just a whole host of things this morning.
Yeah.
That was today. But no, I assume I will learn more about how we're going to deal with these power outages at the Transit Committee next Monday, Karen, and I'll make sure I let you know.
The governor also put out a press release, put out a statement, says that she's directed the MTA to do a full review with Con Ed of the incident yesterday to determine the cause of the delay and make sure it can't happen again. And also noted how important it is to invest in the system, stay to good repair, and fix problems that
yeah.
should have been taken care of decades ago.
Sure.
Because I understand these are really old systems that that had issues, but again, we'll probably hear. I know that was discussed at the press conference that I had to leave early today, but that they went into, if you go on the MTA's YouTube channel, Jano went into some detail on that just a little while ago at the press conference on the Queensboro Plaza elevator opening.
Okay.
And as far as Karen's question about fare hike with congestion pricing, the every other year fare increases were scheduled regardless of congestion pricing. That's large, and congestion pricing funding is for the capital plan and
Yeah.
and
don't know if it's less,
affairs are
yeah.
for operations and the budget. Yep.
No. And my last
Oh, I was
question.
gonna answer, no, I was gonna answer that.
Oh, sorry.
So I tuned into the press conference this morning and Jano gave a talking again about the age of the system and that unless we do something, these will be more and more and more of these kind of stoppages. And then the other thing that one of the reporters, I don't remember who, brought up about the lack of communication from people being stuck on the train, that they couldn't even communicate, that the cell phones aren't working. So maybe we could talk about what's happening with getting the system wired. I was going to bring it up later this, as new business or some kind of business. But if you have any information now, since Karen brought it up.
Well, I think this is a perfect segue for us to introduce our guest, who probably didn't come prepared to discuss this in particular, but who probably has all of the answers that, or at least some of the answers.
Oh,
And
wait on her.
Shanifa, if you wouldn't mind joining us, we would love to have you. Shanifa Riera is, if you would go to the podium, because that way, yeah. Shanifa is this up to date? Yep. Chief Customer Officer and Senior Advisor for Communications and Policy, and her customer service team, who are joining her. I want to introduce your folks as well to give us an update on all of the work that you're doing, as your customers. We appreciate what you're doing, and the way you're communicating with us. So thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and Lisa and all of PCAC. Thank you for having us. I am joined, and you will be introduced by various members of our team to talk about two specific topics today. But of course, some of the topics that was already raised, I'm more than happy to address those during Q&A. Nothing. Talk about timing, coming here the day after many of our customers were impacted by the outage. So that is definitely top of mind, and we are working our way, through those investigations. So from the customer team, many of you were present or may have viewed, we presented recently at the October board meeting, and sort of did a year in review about some of our priorities, some of our accomplishments, and different areas that we will focus on moving forward on that. Many great highlights, which I hope many of you have taken notice and even, taken advantage of with the recent launch of the MTA app, which is, still getting customer feedback and doing those improvements, on an ongoing basis, driving down call center wait time. That was a huge goal of mine, and the team is working diligently towards that. I think right now we are at a 90-second wait time, from historic highs from 10 to 12 minutes. Still a lot of work, to do there. Fair fares is definitely a top priority. Not only, bringing awareness and attention that this program is available for those who qualify, but making sure that it is accessible, easily accessible for those who, can and should take advantage of that. And what does that look like? I mean, of course, letting people know about the program, but also making it convenient for people to come to one of our many in-station events, whether it's through Transit Talk or reoccurring use of our customer service centers, bringing out the Fair Fares team and getting people signed up on the spot and enrolled into Fair Fares. So over the course of 2025, I think the chair alluded to it at the last meeting, we will be putting in, sort of self-service kiosks for people to actually go to the customer service center and sign up for Fair Fares, which is a huge change and shift. So again, PCAC, thank you for your advocacy around fair fares and holding our feet to the fire to make sure we are doing everything we can in partnership with our city partners to know that this program is available and accessible. A whole host of customer facing campaigns, was launched over the course of the year, whether they were around safety, fare evasion, which is the top of everyone's mind. Courtesy count is still going strong and continue. Weirdly enough, with the hard work of the team, have been noticed widely and have been winning awards around our courtesy campaign. We still do see a lot of, and have gotten feedback from our customers that there are some new behaviors that are worth highlighting in an effort to, improve the customer experience and journey. So we will be rolling out some new iteration, but of course, welcome your feedback. We also launched the I Move New York campaign, which really highlights our workforce, and that is prominently displayed in the system and letting, people know that, our workforce is key and critical to what they do. And that was definitely evident last night during the outage where we had an amazing conductor, absence of shortage of communication really stepped up and alleviate concerns and was, super professional and tried her best given the circumstance to over communicate to our customers, what was happening, those who were sort of, stranded and waiting for evacuation. I don't, I'm sure it was mentioned here, but we are also too in the thick of the throes of educating the customer around the start of the January 5th congestion pricing program. So there are a lot of assets within the system and outside of the system, letting people know that is happening. And the week of the 16th, you will see a larger footprint with, ad buys in local newspapers, as well as use of billboards and radio spots by our very own Tim Minton. So we are leaving no stone unturned when it comes to advertising and publicizing the start of congestion pricing, as well as, just as importantly, letting people know about the benefits and the discounts that are available for those who qualify. So, that is underway. Improving service communication. That is something that we as a team collectively have worked really extensively on. Gone are the days that I hope to put behind us about people being confused of how to reach out to the MTA to raise a concern or request any sort of service, improvement or a complaint. So we have, really been using the use of our in-station assets, letting people know of all the various channels and different ways to reach out to us and file complaints. And we are constantly working on building out, that feedback loop. And more to come. Kevin, I won't give it all away. More to come in 2025, how we will build, on that. But that is a major component. And it's, sort of fitting and a segue for Kevin Call to come up, because one of the two things that we wanted to highlight today, not, to talk about the map, which many of you may have seen that we have been testing out different version of the maps and seeing what works and making it easier for our customers to view and navigate and getting everything that they need out of that. So we will talk a little bit about that. But before that, I want to invite Kevin Call up to talk about service communication. Oftentimes, whether it is, at board meetings or committee meetings or just going out into the system, many customers are, when there comes to service impacts, like we are a sophisticated organization. We need to sort of take the guessing out of whether or not I show up at a bus stop or a subway or a railroad station and whether or not service is running on time. So we have done a lot to and launched a bunch of products that can help customers understand, what that looks like. So Kevin Call, who is our Senior Director of Service Planning, can sort of talk through some of the innovative ways that we've improved on service alerts. So Kevin.
That I can do. I'm full service.
I'll be your backup.
Thank you. Hey, everyone.
Yeah.
I'm Kevin Call. I run the service communication teams at the MTA, the teams that tell customers how trains are currently running or will run in the future. Some of you know our work from the digital communications unit, the folks that put out the service alerts on the website, but also go out over social, including Twitter. And these are the same folks that if you respond with the question, they are the helpful folks that respond to you and help you navigate the system. So last time I was here, which might have been a couple of years ago, we were talking about the forthcoming launch of our email and text alert program that replaced the My MTA Alerts program that's, I think was about 15 years old at the time. So that launched, and the big update for this year was we included new elevator and escalator alerts as well as bridge and tunnel alerts. So if you sign up for email or text on the MTA website at mta.info/notify, within there, you can sign up to receive alerts by, subway, bus, Long Island Railroad, Metro North. The big addition for this year was adding in elevator and escalator, which means you can go and you can select a station, and within that station choose all of the elevator and escalators or a specific set if there's a set you care about, and get those sent to you directly via email or text. One major improvement versus the old system didn't let you select time of day. So if you chose an elevator, you had to get 24 hours of whatever that elevator was going through. Some elevators have issues, right? If there was something that happened in the middle of the night, you would hear about it, but maybe you don't travel in the middle of the night. You don't really want that. This new system allows you to say, I only travel between these times. I only care about this sort of select time of day. Maybe you care about all of it. Maybe you just want a selection. Now you can choose. The other fun thing about this is with this project, we have created a new data set by station, which in the future will let us do things like send station-specific alerts to people, so that you say, maybe you don't want elevator alerts specifically, but you do care about updates to your station generally. We'd be able to also send things specific to you. So say we're doing a major project, or there's an improvement or a transit talk, we'd be able to better target information to you. And this is part of the larger strategy here, which is, now that we have all of these increasingly sophisticated digital tools, the app, the screens, the website, the alert system, it allows us to get away from having to send every single message to everybody, right? The MTA of 20 years ago, you would see these big walls of text where, because we couldn't target information to you because we didn't have the tools to do that, you had to sift through walls of information. And so the strategy now is being able to get to know you a little bit and send you things that are relevant to just you. And that way you don't have to do the work of trying to, sift through the noise to find out what's relevant. So sign up, it's mta.info/notify. You'll see these station vinyls up on station walls. They're on digital screens. And there'll be sort of a forthcoming campaign specifically about the elevator alerts, which we think is a major improvement for customers. Great.
Thank you, Kevin.
Take this.
Yeah, thank you. And to keep the train moving, the other topic we wanted to highlight, which I mentioned, is around improving our map. It has been a long, intensive journey. Where Steve and Chuck and many others, including Andrew Albert, who's, have really made a concerted effort to help us make improvement to a New York iconic staple. When it came to updating the map, I mean, and we know we definitely did our due diligence, because we know every New Yorker has an opinion, especially when they're wedded to a particular product and the look and the feel of it. So again, you know, doing our diligent approach and making these changes and improvements, I really want to say that they are improvement, and not sort of doing it in the dark, like, again, testing them, in the various environments, whether it's in digital screens, putting up vinyl, posters, out, you know, across various stations in an effort to solicit feedback from our customers have really guided us, in making the much needed improvement, even, you know, and helping us with that approach. So with that, I will turn it over to who's gonna, Jean, Jean Ribeiro, our Senior Director of Marketing, can start the conversation with the maps, and I'm sure we will have other featured guest speakers.
Sure. Thanks, Shanifa, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us. It's a pleasure to be here to talk to you about some of the fun and innovative projects that our team's been working on. Again, I'm Gene Ribeiro, Senior Director of Marketing and Creative Services. I am one of 85 esteemed employees that are working very hard to deliver super clear communications to our daily customers. I'm flanked here by a portion of the A team, Chuck Gordinaire, who's one of our advertising leads and senior managers here within the department, and also comes to us with a wealth of information around the subway map in and of itself. Chuck touched it, worked on it, updated the Hertz version of the map for many, many years through MTA headquarters. Sean Field, our newly hired creative director, he's been here for a few months, which is probably equivalent to a couple of years, right? Like, you know, a few months of learning here at the MTA is definitely worth its weight in gold. And Sean has been here helping to lead and guide the team on a number of creative projects, the map integration and updates being one of them. Steve Flam, who is our mapping design lead for all things subway map, all things bus maps as well. Stephen has poured his heart and soul into all of the upgrades that we have been making to the subway map, even as recently as this morning, updating the map with the latest elevator that came back online. Stephen was quick to jump into action and update the creative that we do have. Stephen will come up and he will explain a lot of what we've done with the map in terms of some of what we're testing. We're testing the diagrammatic map. We are testing opportunities to make the map less clunky, a bit more of a clearer visual tool. We're using the map in such a way where we can help to direct you around service changes. Kevin, I know he mentioned the fact that, and Shanifa also mentioned this, the fact that he is pushing out a ton of service communications with his team. Sometimes we help with that process by leveraging illustrations that can paint the picture in terms of how to navigate some of these complex service changes. Brian Duran, who is with us, he is my right and left arm here in the department, helps to oversee all things budget, project management. He is also the person that winds up getting the respective map to you in print form. So whether it's the pocket map, whether it is the map that is used as a visual aid, the vinyl maps that are printed and posted within the system, Brian's team helps to facilitate that. And I can't go without speaking about my main man, Ricky Settiati, who is down at the end, our deputy creative director, who has been guiding the team on a number of the projects that Shanifa mentioned earlier, the I Move New York campaign. He and Sean have been working hand in hand to deliver incredible in-house design products. They have been absolutely stellar with respect to bringing these communications from fruition to completion. So, Stephen, why don't you come on up? We do have some visual aids. Some of us will be Vanna White, if you don't mind. We will hold up different pieces, but Stephen can walk you through our mindset. Andrew, forgive us if some of this is a little bit of a repeat show for you. I know that we picked Andrew's brain. We invited him in, as we have with others, just to kind of hear where we're coming from, to bounce our ideas off of him. We have also conducted extensive market research on this product to ensure that we are delivering a product that customers can leverage, can use, can continue to use as a guide. But Stephen, come on in.
Thanks very much. I did have the opportunity to address this group several years ago, and the map or the diagram that we presented at that time, this has been completely redrawn and reimagined. I just wanted to point out that Bloomberg did an article where they talked about the most complex subway maps in the world. Guess who was number one? So this is really an effort to make things a lot clearer and easier to understand for all of our customers, for New Yorkers, and especially people with vision challenges. So what we've done is we've made bolder route lines, eliminated as much clutter as possible, and we've also introduced a black subway bullet with a white character on top of it, which is maximum contrast for ADA. So that means it's going to be easier for people to see. Because when we had the character inside the color bullet, each one of those colors has a different contrast ratio. So what we're trying to do is make things equal, make things better. Also, oh yeah, I see. Yeah, Lisa has the night map. We have different versions of this. Currently, these are running. Kevin didn't mention it, but he had mentioned it at board of directors meetings. These maps also appear on digital screens. So we have a weekdays, a night map, and of course for the weekend, we have, we're leveraging the CIC digital screens to show weekend maps with service changes for each and every weekend. So, thank you, Kevin, for spearheading that and getting that up on those screens. That's something that we wanted to see for years. But most of our work is done obviously here in creative services, but we've been working with a lot of other departments. We've been working with accessibility, operations planning. And of course, Mr. Albert has, contributed several times, and we've made some of his changes. And one thing I wanted to point out is this is really an evolutionary project. And what you see right now is not the final. This is an ongoing process. As a matter of fact, what Gene said, we just made a change this morning. We'll have another station name change, other ADA stations that are coming on board, and continuous improvements that we're making literally every week. And anytime someone calls us and says, we have a new idea, we always consider that and try to make those changes, which includes the focus group suggestions. So, and we are continuing to make those changes and evaluate them. So anyway, some of the highlights were just reducing clutter overall. The diagram style is an international style. It's used throughout the world. And Sean was pointing out that he had just been on a trip recently in Europe and compared our diagram to a lot of the other diagrams that you'll see in other countries, including London. And in his biased opinion, and my biased opinion, I think ours is much better, much clearer, and much more direct and much more bold. So I don't know if I can add anything else to that, but to be continued.
I think it's just worth noting, as Steve mentioned, this is an evolutionary process, right? Like we're continuing to pour hard into developing as perfect a product as we can, with the ultimate, goal being communicating as effectively as we can to customers. So we think we have a really solid product here. We will continue to build on it, continue to get it to a place where we can ensure customers are thrilled. And I see Andrew is right over here, ready to share additional details, which we love. So thank you very much. Shanifa, I don't know if you have some closing remarks. Yeah, come on in, Kevin.
I'm going to briefly talk about the map screens in case you have seen these out in the system. And I've been working with Steve on this project for a couple of years now. It's been really exciting. So a little story. I live off the M train in North Brooklyn. And if you're familiar with the M train, it changes significantly overnight. So when I got married, my parents came to town, and the night before the wedding, I wanted my parents to just get out of my hair for a bit, so I sent them to a Broadway show. And I told them how to get to Times Square, which was take the M to Bryant Park. I forgot to tell them how to get home. And so what happens, they come out of their show and they wait for an M train that does not show up. And they go to the map that's posted on, in the station, and it looks like the M is there. What's going on? They were very confused by it. And it took them a while to finally find someone to tell them, oh yeah, you got to take the F to the J, Delancey, and transfer. And I've always felt kind of bad about that, right? So this is one of these things on my mind is, service changes significantly overnight and on the weekend. Now with paper maps, it's not practical to change them out 3 times a day. You can't do that. But with a digital screen, you can, right? It's just we have to build the process and the back end, the technology to allow that. So it's a project we've been working on for a while, which is first we started with the weekend map, right? Weekend service can be very, very different weekend by weekend. We do, reroutes and shuttle buses. It's very important to communicate that. So we worked on a process to figure out how could we do this every single week to take the 20 plus GOs that happen, map them, check the map, have it distributed, and then develop a way to post it on those screens. That was the first part of the project. And then what just launched was the ability for us to do this now on the overnight. So we have every night at 11 o'clock, the weekday map goes away and you see the overnight map, which just shows nighttime service, right? That map would have saved my parents a lot of trouble because they would have seen the M train does not run to Bryant Park at 11 o'clock. So overnight from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m., you see the late night map. The weekday map comes back on during the day, and then we have a special weekend map that's specific to each weekend service pattern that goes up. So, I hope you like it. And holidays, right. And there is a, for weather emergencies, there is a snow map, which someday might make its appearance, right? That just shows underground only service.
I think it's terrific that there's a weekend map now so that people aren't looking at weekday and rush hour service and all of that on a weekend. I hope the ultimate goal, and I've told this to Steve and everyone else, I hope the ultimate goal is to move to a real-time map. So the map shows exactly what's happening at that very moment.
It would be great. And, I don't think the technology is quite ready for us yet, but it would, save us a lot of time and, enable an even more dynamic map, as you say. So just want to, thank Steve and Jean's team. They've really made this project possible for us. Sure. So we were also, one thing we're thinking about is how do we add, live information to the bottom of the map screen. All these things are kind of percolating right now. It's a conversation between us and the Outfront network, what the network can support. There are a lot of back channel conversations that happen to make this stuff possible.
For instance, and along those lines, so if you're if you're taking a 7 to Woodside, it could show you what the next train Long Island Railroad schedules are, right?
I mean, I would love that. Yes.
Yeah. Do you all also work on with the railroads and the buses too, so that it could show that interconnectivity once that's all ready?
We do. That's the benefit of these transform teams is we're all working together and the agencies are all communicating and sharing information.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
Oh.
Judy, then Sharon,
Yeah.
and then Jason.
And Andrew Kirk, what's his name? John, whatever, who worked on the first map and then was not happy when it came with what's his name from John and wrote all those nasty letters. I can't remember his name right now, but anyway, I was here when the map came out and then there was a committee, Taranek, yeah. And I don't know if anyway, John Taranek, who worked on the first map, did not like the Vanelli map, which this seems to look more like then. And I'm just wondering if, besides Andrew, because nobody contacted me and I was here at that time on staff. Actually in Venetia's job, sort of, because I bless her and the whole staff she has. I had about 3 people. But I was wondering in developing all of this, if you were in touch with any of the committee that actually worked on the first 2 convolutions, and I'm using that word on purpose, of the map back in the 70s and the 80s and what have you.
Take the mic. Yeah. You've told them. Yeah.
Yeah. I can answer just from my brief experience with the PCAC meeting, and we had Arlene Brompton on the phone, and you know, what they did years ago, it's over 40 years old. So we've really looked at everything, and the way that we approach this is, even though this is new, it's completely redrawn. I can't come forward and say, I created this out of nothing. I can't say that. So what this is, various people have created diagrams with multi-lines even before Vignelli. So we're using the Vignelli multi-line approach. We're using the John Tarnack trunk lines and the colors that they developed. And then now, most recently, we've added our own spin on it with the Boulder lines and the black subway bullets. So what we like to think of is that we took the best ideas from the past, from anybody who's ever done a map here at MTA or New York City Transit, and combined them in a new way, in a more fresh, direct way.
Was Tarnack happy with this?
No, listen, John Tarnack is never happy.
No, I know, is less unhappy. Let me put it another way. Is Tarnack less unhappy with this map that?
I haven't talked to him directly, but just in our opinion, we did take the elements of John Tarnack's map that we thought were great. I would love to talk to him and tell him that and to compliment him. His map ran for, what was it, 47 years? That is amazing. That is longer than any map here. So he really deserves a big pat on the back and a huge compliment. And I would love to talk to him. But
Well,
as
then
I said,
if you really want, I'll get you in touch with him.
sure,
All right.
I would love
But
to.
You know what you're
Great,
asking
thank you.
for
But
now.
I think we need to move
Yeah,
on to
okay.
our
Okay.
next question, was, Andrew,
you
you
very
have
much.
something, then Sharon?
I just wonder how this shrinks down to credit card size.
Well, assuming that your credit card is on your phone, then you can zoom in on it. But credit card size, the smallest that you would ever see it is what you're holding in your hand, which is exactly what's on the car, in the subway cars. So that is, I hate to use the words worst case scenario, but that is the smallest that it will ever appear.
Correct. Even when it.
Just to answer an earlier question, this is a lot more accurate than the Vignelli map was geographically.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
other
Oh,
things.
yes, definitely, definitely.
Thank you.
Christopher, then actually Mr. X had his hand before, and then Jason.
The only thing I just wanted to add really quickly is just in terms of the size of the map. With design, we started with the size that you're holding because that is, as Steve described it, the worst case scenario. Whether you're folding it down to a pocket size or you see it in the car as a premium square size, that's the more difficult size to design for. You can always scale up, but we tried to start with the worst case scenario and then build out to the easier options.
Sharon? I'm sorry, Sharon, you went. Christopher, then Walter, I'm sorry, and then Mr. X, then Jason.
Yes, first of all, as you know, being on the actor also, when we did look at these maps, we were also working on making sure that persons who need to see in large print, because I remember Edith asked for that as well in the past. We're glad to see that these maps are a little bigger because some of us who may have some certain eye issue or certain kind of disability. But on the digital area, as Andrew mentioned, we're glad to see the subways getting rerouted. And we do see some pilots going on with accessible reroutes as well. On a lot of good things, because I'm seeing a lot of things have changed for the last 6 years and it's going in the right direction, including the apps as well.
Thank you very much. And I remember addressing ACTA, and there will be more things that we're working on in order to improve things for accessibility.
Yes. As actor community outreach officer, we've been very pleased what we're seeing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Walter, and then Mr. X, and then Jason.
Yeah, somebody here mentioned credit cards a few minutes ago, and this morning at the Grand Central Subway Station, Mr. Glucksman and I were to go into the subway. There was a long line of people at the two MetroCard machines that were there. And he suggested to some of these folks that if they had credit cards in their hands, he said, you can just tap your credit card and go right in, and you don't have to wait and buy a ticket at the machine. So they were very grateful and they left. And then I tried to get in with my MetroCard and was embarrassed to find I didn't have enough money on it. So I now had to go back and put money on my MetroCard. And I had 3 people ahead of me. I get rid of those 3 people by telling them they can just tap their credit cards and go through the turnstile. And that way I got expedited and they got expedited as well. And I guess my point is, perhaps you need to do more to publicize the fact that people can just tap their credit cards at the turnstile and go right in.
Yeah, so we have completely and totally aware that that is happening. We see lines. I also go over and engage customers, and also again, asking them if they have a credit card they can tap and enter. We have been sort of rebranding the fare array with some vinyls and some messaging around that, and that is something that we are going to roll out a new refresh version of it, because also oftentimes customers' eyes gets glazed over when they see the same ads over and over. So we like to while they are important information, changing the look and the feel and the design so people can see that this is something new that they should pay attention to. But we are rolling out new messaging around skipping the line and promoting the use of Omni, and we will double down on that, because that has to be coupled with human behavior. Having is what you assisted us with this morning, and having a human being standing there and seeing a line, and the use of our station agents and other MTA personnel, and going out into these high traffic locations where we are seeing long lines, and encouraging them one by one individually to get off the line and tap and enter the system, so that we are aware and is making a lot of steps in that direction.
One funny thing here was that there were 2 transit authority people there, and we asked them, why don't you just tell these people they don't have to wait in line? And one of them said, well, these people like to wait in lines. I know I don't like to wait in lines. I'm sure most of those folks don't either. But anyway, that's what they told me.
Thank you.
Well, you see, Larry, I see that you've raised your hand. Mr. X, you've actually held yours up there for a while. So let's do Mr. X, then Larry, then Jason.
Record, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Well, for the record, I've always preferred the 972 map over the current map, which is the 979 map. To me, I thought it was more highly detailed. I thought it was more helpful. To me, the 979 map was confusing compared to 972 map. And only because I wasn't old enough to read. Or it was born 972, but on the month 974. That's another story. But what you could do is make your current map look like the 972 map, or just make some adjustments. Go straight, don't go diagonal, or go straight. East, west, southwest, northeast, but go straight otherwise.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Larry, and then Jason.
Brief comment. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Just a brief comment. I just think that you guys are hung up on terminology. You guys
Larry, you're fading in and out.
How about now? Am I better now?
Yeah.
I'll stand still. Can you hear me or no?
Yes.
Okay. I just think that you guys are just a little hung up on terminology. You have to stop with the Omni and just say you can use your MasterCard, Visa, or American Express and tap. Simple, short, and sweet. Stay away from the Omnis because people don't know what Omni is. but they do know what their MasterCard and American Express cards are. And you can just write, if you have, just tap those cards, period.
No, totally understand. And for the purposes of this conversation, I did reference Omni, but all of our customer facing assets really is focused on tapping and entering. Even the student Metro card, it goes down to the actual tapping and entering.
Mr. Breaking and entering. Go ahead.
That too, yes.
Thank you. Jason, and then Maddie, we see your hand. Yes, thank you.
Shanifa, I totally agree with Larry on that one because people from out of town don't know what Omni is. Even though that we know that is one Metro New York, because I oftentimes see people from out of town not knowing what it is. So we have to like change the terminology and tell them that you could use your own credit or debit card or use your Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, or Android Pay or Google Pay. And regarding the subway maps, it's way overdue. And we would love to see it too, multi-language, because I could see people, especially if they come from Europe, having the subway maps on hand, but they don't know. Let's say, for instance, on the weekends that we have so many geos and using the physical map. We could have a multi-language, but also the audio announcements, we could have a multi-language too, to have them more. So we would love to see more in 2025 because your team has been doing an awesome job in 2024. So thank you for your hard work and let's keep it doing it in 2025.
Thank you, Jason, for the feedback. Again, those are, those suggestions are really welcomed and we will discuss and work on incorporating that.
Great. Jerry, see you, and then Maddie's.
Yeah, Shanifa, you said you were preparing people for the congestion pricing. But everything I've seen so far says, the fee is going to be $9 with Easy Pass. Now, is it going to be more with tolls by mail?
Yes.
Well, that's what I thought, but you're not telling anybody that. Or at least that's,
We do have, do you want to?
well, what I've seen so far, I'm just trying to give you the customer's
Yeah,
perspective.
and we have different assets, so we can, Gene or
Yeah.
Sean
Okay.
can talk about the like.
Yeah, there are a number of assets that we are pushing out and have pushed out. We do speak to, the discount, to use of Easy Pass, to we will have more messaging coming up around exemptions. We have a full paid media campaign that is rolling out. Chuck Gordonier has been leading that charge beginning on December 16th, as Shanifa mentioned. So we've been leveraging a lot of our internal channels, customer facing screens, the website and social media and so on and so forth. Thank you, Chris, in terms of one of the handouts that we've also produced that speak to the ins and outs of congestion pricing. So your point is well taken and we have integrated it into the respective communications.
Well, before I asked that question, I went on to see what I could find. And I couldn't find anything about the additional, if you go toll by mail. I don't even know what it is. I know it's $9 if you have an Easy Pass and
On the-
you advertise that.
Got it.
But my concern is for you, because what's going to happen is if you don't advertise that, as soon as the first toll by mail bills start hitting people's mailboxes,
Sure.
your phones are going to explode.
Trust me, yeah.
Your system's
We're
going
with
to
you.
crash. I'm
Yeah.
telling you.
Yeah. No, we appreciate that. And I take it you went to the website, Congestion Relief Zone.
I was just like congestion pricing, New York and tolls and, just
Okay.
stroll through everything. And I
Yep.
still couldn't find what it would cost with tolls by mail.
Got it.
All right.
Yeah, we've built it into our website, and we'll make sure to triple check to make sure all the details are positioned there. But we're happy to continue to have this conversation and build out on this messaging even
All right.
further.
Appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Stuart, then Mike. Can-
the congestion relief zone website does reference the tolls by mail and the
Yeah.
50% more of a charge. But what's not clear to the public is the readers are reading license plates, not easy passes. So in theory, if your vehicle is registered or linked to an easy pass account, you would be charged the $9 toll. So, getting that messaging out, that someone doesn't necessarily have to worry if they didn't have their physical easy pass in the vehicle.
Yeah, yeah,
But the tolls by mail are significantly more money.
yeah, agreed.
50% more.
Yeah, your point is well taken. Thank you.
Right.
Mike?
Yeah, no, just to reiterate what Jerry's saying, I think we all pay pretty close attention to that. And for us to be discovering the fact that Easy Pass is a $9 fare and told by mail is more today is shocking to me. I don't think it's necessarily a marketing communications problem. I think it's a PR problem. And I think it starts in the governor's office. She's been all over talking about a $9 fee. And so you've got a lot of people who believe that's the fee. There's going to be a lot of re-education necessary here.
We're not gonna tell her.
Lisa's-
Matt, no, yeah, no, I think that the message is, I think the message is done, is happening here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maddie's offline. Okay, Chris, and then and then Jason, you've already spoken. Oh, we have a question here, from one of our online folks. Who do I speak to about getting Omni machines in my community? We have no place to get or refill the cards. Seniors don't like to use credit or debit cards. They don't trust them. We need the ability to use cash. I don't know what community, Aaron,
Yes.
maybe you can put that in the,
I was just
chat
about
as
to
well?
suggest the same, and
oh, in Co-op City.
Co-op City. Okay, we're happy to share that information with the team. So the process to roll out Omni CVMs is ongoing.
Yeah.
And replacement of MVMs, MetroCard vending machines within the system obviously is ongoing, but we'll be sure to cite that respective community and share that with the team that's handling the rollout.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, let's do Andrew, Henry, and then we're gonna let you all go because we've got to go. You can use Chris's mic.
Okay, I'm holding it. Okay, no problem. Okay, okay, my question is something I've been talking about for years and everything, and that's selling the MTA, meaning tourists and stuff of that nature. Because plain and simple, the subway is probably one of the biggest tourist attractions because everyone wants to, first time to New York, they want to, they want the experience of riding on the New York City subway. And I've had friends who have come to New York and have had problems, difficulties over the years and stuff. Are you at least selling it to the tourists through the New York City tourism and everything of that nature, and trying to get it that it is part of everything else in that regard? I think that's the best way to put that, I think.
Thank you.
I mean, you're right. The New York subway system is iconic, and everyone wants to be part of it, or those who have not had an opportunity to visit New York know about it. We do have a partnership with the NYC and Co, and we are in constant communication and working with those groups, especially as it relates to understanding and educating and informing visitors to New York. We do talk to them regularly and push out new products and updates and things that they need to and should know about and be informed of. But as far as like actually selling assets, like happy to have a conversation with you offline of what your thoughts and what that look and feel is.
Thank you. And then Henry, and then we gotta let everybody go and move on. Thank you. Sorry, Trudy, you've asked it, and it was. about phone service and so the phone, there, as tunnels get wired, there will be more.
It's the best way to act. I'm sorry. I know, but what is happening? What's the time frame and what is happening with it?
Would you mind getting us a schedule?
Yes.
And we'll share it. Thank you. Okay.
Teresa says thank you.
Say thank you on
you
the
need to turn that
microphone.
on.
Thank you, Shanice.
Just once. Okay. Hey. Okay. Hey guys, thank you for all this great information. I'm personally really excited about this new iteration of the subway map. I had a question about integrating bus service with this diagram. We have select bus service here in New York City, and it's especially important the riders know that select bus service is here and it's supposed to be in higher order within our bus system. So I was wondering what your guys' thoughts are on integrating select bus service with this new subway map.
Hi, it's Stephen again. I think it's going to be a big challenge to put it on a printed map, but I know others like Will Fisher is working on an app and also with the new MTA app, and they might be able to integrate that because they have something that I've seen where you have the diagram, but it has location services where you can tap on a station and it provides you with all the information for that station. And what's coming is bus information that will be linked to each station. So that's the best case scenario that we could offer. You can't put everything.
I mean, we do also, prominently position connections as well as on strip maps.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, the strip maps in the system. There's a lot of information in the system already that provides that information. The digital screens
Yeah.
in systems are wonderful. There's also the strip maps in the older subway cars overhead. And also, last but not least, the verbal announcements that they make on the train and on the platforms. Oh, and the neighborhood maps. Yes, of course. Chuck reminded us of Walk New York City. And by the way, because these subway diagrams are so stripped down, they work in conjunction with Google Maps, Walk New York City, our strip maps, and our announcements on board stations and the digital screens. So everything is like working together.
All right, thank you all so much. We really appreciate it. Some of
You
your
guys do a
maps have
great
been
job.
absconded with the souvenirs. I can tell you that so far.
Yeah.
Hopefully these are not one-of-a-kind artifacts because we'll have to have a search party for some of them.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, so
Happy
thank you.
holidays. I'm
Really
sorry to
appreciate it.
interrupt.
Sorry, Maddie,
you
we'll
guys-
have to, no, Maddie, I'm sorry, you can't interrupt right now. We have to move on, but we will come back to you for
All right, thank
old
you.
and new business.
I just wanted
Thank
to
you.
just commend them. Happy
Okay.
holidays. That's all.
Thank you. Yes, that we'll get back to you on that.
I think you're up.
Thank you. I am up. So we have two presentations that I would really like to get to that our staff have worked really hard on. So I'm just going to give a really brief intro on those and really let the PCAC team shine and do what they do best, which is show off the work that they are doing that makes me look good. So I'll say that I'll just start by saying we're continuing to do a lot of work around congestion pricing. Trudy, thank you. That we're continuing to do a lot of work around congestion pricing. I'm sorry. Thank you. We're continuing to do a lot of work around congestion pricing. Karen, to your point, that means talking about affordability and about fares. And Jack is going to talk about some of the work that we're doing in that regard. Benji is going to talk about a report that he has worked on, that they've worked on around the city of Yes, zoning proposal that was just addressed. As Chris mentioned, I was at this morning at the Queensboro Plaza accessibility ribbon cutting, and there were some great announcements of a couple of new surprise additions that are coming up. We're going to continue to press for the other accessibility projects. It was really refreshing to see the MTA leadership so invested on accessibility within the system. Jerry, here's breaking news for you. And Larry, Senator Gillibrand's office got back to me yesterday and they're introducing legislation for WageWorks. So that should be this week. regarding wage works that we've been working with them for 4 years. Yeah, for 4 years on. I had the privilege of being on a panel, actually moderating a panel with Rob Free and other service providers on Long Island for Vision Long Island, and on with other folks on the Northeast Corridor talking about infrastructure on the Northeast Corridor yesterday, and Brian was on a panel with the American Institute of Architects in New York talking about congestion pricing last week. So we are continuing to not just talk about the importance of congestion pricing for accessibility, for the important work that is going into state of good repair, but the other really critical resiliency projects that were talked about yesterday and other critical work that's happening around the system. But it really has a context of what's happening now and how do we, what are we doing now to assure people that that to entice people back on board, some for the first time, particularly as the specter of affordability is surrounds us. So first, I'm going to ask Jack to talk about the report that he has been diligently working on for the last forever. Okay, thank you. And with no further ado,
Hi, everyone. I've always wanted to use one of these mics. This is pretty exciting. So yes, this is this is our report. This is the cover. Well, it's not the theme, and is really based off of, and the report itself is really based off a lot of the great work Kara had done, and Ryan, who I'm sure most of you remember, during the Omnivate. This is kind of the follow-up. So moving into the first slide here, kind of just to ground us in the reason we kind of felt the need to update this report in the first place, and the factors that kind of factored in to our recommendations. So last year, we took many of the recommendations contained in the Omnivate report, in particular, senior and disabled and Medicare eligible fares in the AM peak, city ticket weekly, and fares on the commuter rails within New York City. That became the Fares Act, which was included in the Senate's One House budget, which the governor will release her executive budget. The Senate and the Assembly each respond. So yeah, following up with that, we had 1.5 million city tickets sold. Congestion pricing is starting. As Lisa mentioned, the affordability crisis is ongoing. And as you all may remember, Omni is now off of the railroads officially, but as I'll get into a little bit more later, we think there's still a great opportunity to achieve the original goals of Omni, even if the Cubic, the contractor that works on Omni, isn't the main person across the whole system. And also, of course, fares increased to 200% of the federal property levels. Sorry, I'll try to be quick here to leave time for questions. So that kind of, to give you an idea of what we're going to be advocating for most urgently, this is what we're calling our rider first fare agenda. As we approach the implementation of congestion pricing, the biannual fare increase that Karen mentioned, as well as the New York State budget process. These are 5 policies that we had come up with and that we've talked internally that we think are really practical and really implementable. So many of these were included in the Fares Act. The big difference, the 2 new things, is that we want to address the mid-kid gap on family fare. Which was in the Omnivate report, but wasn't something that we pushed for at the legislative level last year. And just to be clear about what that means, that's many of you probably know that if you are a monthly pass holder, you can ride with your kid if they're between the ages of 7 and 11 for an extra $1, but between the ages of 12, 17, and 17, no such discount exists, with all the focus on affordability and just really the whole narrative around $15 is too much for driving, but not just fine if you're on the railroad. We wanted to respond and make it cheaper for families to ride the rails into the city, because that's more pleasant anyways.
and Rosalind had Roz, that might look familiar because you had initially suggested it.
And also, we want to push to expand fares to 200% at the statewide level. We've done that a lot at the city level with our partners at CSS, Community Service Society, and Riders Alliance. The assembly actually has been really supportive of expanding fares to 200%. So we love that and we wanted to include that as a recommendation. Okay, wait, sorry, I'm confusing myself. So moving on to the next slide, this, yeah. Losing my mind over here. All right. So that's our most urgent recommendations. But that's not the only recommendations that we have, because we have kind of the short term, what we think is the most actionable, and then some of the longer term priorities. They're guided by 4 core goals: enhancing affordability, improving fare collection. That's the conductor who physically will go around and gather the ticket, simplifying fare payment, and addressing fare evasion, which we know has been a hot topic for several years now. So first, moving into the fare adjustment items. Again, there's, this is a category where there's a lot of commonality between what we're pushing for urgently and what is what's in this trash of recommendations. But one thing I wanted to talk about was creating a unified city zone between both railroads, and ideally a single city ticket between both railroads. That our understanding is that with the coming evolution of fare payment on the railroads, that's going to be something that's going to be much more easy to implement, not this year, but in the next year. So we're going to really, at every opportunity we can, try to build momentum for that. But just because there's current technological limitations, it's not something we wanted to push for right away. Okay, moving on to non-fare adjustment items. Again, these all should look pretty familiar from the last Omnivate report. I won't go, we're short on time, but really the goal here is across the region, just to make it, make the MTA apps as seamless as possible, as integrated as possible, whether that be in terms of ticketing, in terms of navigation itself, just really trying to offer a whole swath, make it as easy as the rider possible to navigate systems that they are familiar with and also those that they aren't familiar with. And that will leave to the last group here is our legislative recommendations. And I keep getting lost in my own packet. I should have organized this better. There we go. Thank you. Thank you, Jess. Sorry. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of good stuff in here. I won't go into too much depth because I want to leave time for questions and make sure we have time for Benji's. There will be more time to talk about it, but these are all things that we hope to partner with some of our partners in the legislature, mostly at the state level, to hopefully advance in the coming session. Yeah, and then I think that's all I had. One fun thing we added was creating free Metro cards for CUNY students. But yeah, that's it. Any questions or anything? Yes, Chris.
Thank you, Jack.
I'll be quick. For CUNY's, CUNY, like Jason, who is a CUNY, has an Omni card. A lot of the students do have them. It's just that.
Only a small handful.
Exactly. But I was just gonna say a small amount.
Yeah, and we
There-
do discuss that in the report.
Yeah,
as well.
and we do need to encourage that information needs to go out, and maybe like some of those students need to, hello. But looking at your reports, very well done. I just hope that we can work on that morning transfer, because that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't make sense, because the evening, no problem, but morning, what were they thinking still? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to add also in the recommendations, in the 5 core recommendations, we met with the MTA. We've been working to get some financial estimates on what it would cost and making recommendations on where those pots of money would come from, so that they don't come from the MTA budget. That they do, for instance, that the senior disabled AM peak fare could be part of the state master plan for the aging, which is in development right now. That there are potential budget pools currently that exist, that will not be a financial burden on the MTA, that make it more palatable. We just have been, seeking better idea of what, working with our partners also, better idea of what the money ask will need to be. And a lot of work has really gone into this, by Jack, and by Kara, and by Brian. So thank you guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. X, do you have a question about this, and Maddie, about this?
That's correct, Lisa.
Okay, Maddie, go ahead.
First of all, I do want to apologize for interrupting earlier. The internet's been pain in the ass in my area. Second of all, I do agree with legislation that you guys need to propose, especially for the attention to Majority Leader Andrew Stewart Cousins and Speaker Carl Hasty about bipartisan legislation, so that way accessibility can work for all of us and not just the few. And I also would like to add on, we should also have bipartisan support on a bill to have the three chairs of the commuter councils be voting members. Listen, none of us are rich as hell or something like that, but everyone deserves a fair shot. Wouldn't you everyone agree on that?
I think that nobody here would disagree with you at all. No, in fact, I think everyone here would probably agree with you. Yes, that's part of, those are things we'll discuss in a separate conversation, but I think that we're not giving up the pursuit of voting membership. These are conversations that we're having now in advance of the governor's budget and her state of the state, which is scheduled for a January 14th date. So we just want to raise those and elevate them and get support and get them out there as we continue to also have the conversations about voting membership. Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. Tell your senators and assembly members.
Thank you. And Mr. X, and then we're going to move to Benji.
Yeah, there's two things regarding membership. Where I stand, I'm hoping I could get appointed. And I appreciate it. I've touched in PCAC for over 20 years. That's how long I've known Double A. And regarding Queensboro Plaza, the Queensboro Bridge Plaza, I was unaware of that fact. I feel like they found the man wheelchair accessible. I'm just sad there's no physical connection to Queens Plaza, which is nearby. That would be gladly appreciated, especially when the powers that be kill the 7 train between there and Times Square. As if we're like Neil Armstrong, the first man to walk the moon. Some of us will walk across the Queensboro Bridge, some of us won't. Little physical message to Queens Plaza. It's right there, you keep it in, do something.
I think that's probably a very future capital plan. But point taken. That'd be nice, but thank you. All right, now I'm going to ask Benji to give us their presentation on City of Yes. City of Yes. Well, I don't need to say anything. Benji, take it away.
Hello, everybody. I hope we're all doing well today, and we're getting to the end of our meeting here. So hopefully you're all not too sleepy, but I'm going to get straight into this presentation here. So I'm sure most of you have heard at least a little bit about City of Yes. It is a rezoning policy that just got passed in City Council last week. And it comes with a lot of really big stuff and really big changes that could see a lot of great future benefits, both to housing in the city, but also to transit. And so this is what this report that I've been working on for the past few months is all about. And also, by the way, I am the intern, one of the interns for PCAC at this time. So Henry is the other one. Next slide. So City of Yes, as I said, is a rezoning, housing rezoning in New York City that just got passed. And it legalizes a lot of transit-oriented developments and reductions of parking minimums. Basically, what this means is developers instead of making parking for cars, they can make more housing units for people. And what this usually means is that if people have less access to easy parking, they're more likely to not have a car. And so another big thing that City of Yes is doing is creating 58 to 80,000 new homes in the next 15 years to help alleviate our housing affordability crisis here in New York City. And what's really important to note here is that a lot of that housing is going to be transit or focused or oriented. And so considering that this significant amount of new housing that is more transit focused is going to be developed, how is that going to affect the ridership of our transit system? Nothing but good news. Next slide. So we've estimated that about 70 to 97,000 new riders daily could come from City of Yes and just the new housing that it develops, again, compared to doing nothing over the next 15 years, which can equates to $309 million annually to the to revenue here for the MTA. And that is including, current percentages for fare evasion and things like that taken into account. So it's a lot of money that could come to the operating budget for the MTA and potentially quite a bit of service improvements or enhancements. Next slide. One of the biggest thing that opponents to City of Yes have been saying, especially, about taking the trains or buses, is that, there just isn't enough capacity on a lot of the stations and lines, especially in the outer borough neighborhoods that are going to be seeing a lot more housing. If you look at the map, the darker blue, the neighborhood is the more housing that the Department of City Planning has estimated that neighborhood will get. And I've highlighted in green and yellowish all the stations that are seeing less passengers than they did in 2019, meaning these stations have served more people than they're doing today, which means they have capacity to serve more people, especially from City of Yes. One of some of the notable exceptions of this is the 7 and the L trains, which are, I think, actually quite a bit more people have made quite the recovery since 2019. Yeah, CBTC. And also that these neighborhoods have also seen a lot of development within the last 10 years, development and gentrification in Williamsburg, Long Island City, Bushwick, places that these lines are serving. So we can see here that growth does in fact also affect ridership.
You might want to do maybe dash lines or something just to show the new Penn access stations in the Bronx.
True. Very true. But yeah, so we certainly have the capacity, and the MTA can absolutely take on a lot more people onto our transit system than we're currently getting. So we have a few more recommendations for the MTA and other city agencies on what we can do with City of Yes. Because City of Yes really opens a lot of doors for transit and a lot of opportunities for transit improvements with higher ridership numbers and better housing that really incentivizes using transit rather than your personal automobile. So our first recommendation here is to, of course, continue to say yes to transit-focused developments and housing projects that has come along because of City of Yes. The more housing we see in New York City, the more affordable housing becomes and the more people who could live here and potentially ride our amazing system. Because the MTA is an amazing asset for New York, and our density in New York City would simply not be possible without our transit system. So having increased density, especially transit-oriented density that really doesn't, put parking garages in the basements and things like that, where they can focus more on putting infrastructure costs to housing people instead of cars. So say yes to more housing and transit oriented developments. Our second recommendation is that because a lot of neighborhoods, especially in the outer boroughs and in the periphery.
I'm just gonna say, I'm listening to Karen in my head, not the boroughs outside of Manhattan.
Exactly. The boroughs outside of the Manhattan, especially the neighborhoods that are perhaps on the periphery of the city, are going to be seeing a lot of housing development. The DCP estimates. And so because of that, the MTA really needs to be working hand in hand with the Department of City Planning and the Department of Transportation to be able to bring better service, especially with buses and railroads, to these neighborhoods. Really, again, better service means people are going to be more likely to use that service. And that's really important when it comes to designing bus routes that really are successful and efficient, as well as redesigning streetscapes, things like that. That again, just makes the city easier and safer to get around in. I said a little bit about this before. I'm going to reiterate again. Recommendation 3 is the MTA really needs to monitor which subway, bus, and rail lines and stations need capital investments because of City of Yes. We only showed it for a little bit on the map. But a lot of neighborhoods, again, on the periphery of New York City are going to be seeing more housing, and these neighborhoods need to be met with service. Neighborhoods like Central and Eastern Brooklyn, Southern Queens, are going to be getting quite a bit of new housing, and capital investments can really go hand in hand with current projects that the MTA is doing, like the CBTC along the A&C line. Things like that. So the MTA needs to monitor based on housing growth and passenger demand, what projects need to be done. Recommendation 4 is adjust service with revenue gained from additional ridership. Because additional ridership, especially additional paying ridership, means a higher operating budget, the MTA could then be allowed with that higher operating budget to adjust service, especially for places that really need them. Again, more money means more flexibility in making these services. Recommendation 5 and our last recommendation here is making paying the fare convenient and affordable for commuter railroads. Eastern Queens is somewhat only serviced by the Long Island Railroad in a lot of different neighborhoods. And City of Yes makes it so developments within a half mile of station have reduced parking minimums, meaning that those developments will be incentivizing their residents to be taking the rail system. City of Yes also really allows for a lot more affordable housing in New York City. And so people who are going to be living in affordable housing, especially in places in the city that are only served by railroads, really need to are more benefited by fare reduction programs like fair fares on the rails, and a bit of what Jack was talking about earlier. So it's really important to see more services and better services for places that are getting more housing. And so kind of lastly here, the thing you need to take away from all of this is that housing policy and transit policy go hand in hand. City of Yes really opens a lot of doors when it comes to making better transit here in New York City, because housing is one of the biggest determinants on whether someone's going to be driving the car or taking the subway. And then, as I said before, the MTA is probably one of the biggest and best assets that New York City has in its public infrastructure, and our density and as a city would not be possible without it. So it's high time to really build New York City like, New York City. And that's about it.
Thank you. Stuart, you have a question? Or a point?
But I'm on my time, sorry.
Yeah.
We move slower when we age. Very nice presentation. You talked about, buses, you talked about commuter rail. If the IBX is going to be a reality in our lifetime with this development, the siting of the stations along the right of way might be something we want to look at or comment on and tout that as one of the other options, because it's a public transit project. And I love the idea about, what we tried to do with affordability with fares on the Long Island Railroad and on underutilized lines. And if that relates to where these developments are going to be, then, push that again.
Oh, yeah, that's great. So there wasn't enough information really that was detailed to break it down by the railroads also. So we wanted to I really wanted to. We really wanted to, but there just wasn't enough of that level of detail, but there was of the subways. And to an extent, I think some of the bus lines, but that would probably take another year. So, but incorporating the IBX in there could definitely be a next iteration and maybe as the next level of looking at the rails also.
Bringing up the IBX is a great point here because higher housing and higher density, especially around IBX, would create additional demand for that service. So that's an amazing point you bring up, and thank you.
Just a quick question. I'm not familiar. What's the parking requirements, parking space requirements today? I didn't think it was very much in terms of the available space in the city. And are we talking about anything significantly here in the new requirements?
So, parking requirements in New York City are Byzantine in their complexity, to say the least. In parts of the city, including Manhattan, below Harlem, I think it is currently, there are zero parking mandates. Like you do not have to build parking because it's, you know, Manhattan. But in pretty much all the rest of the city, except for maybe downtown Brooklyn, you have to build some amount of parking for every housing project above a certain amount of housing units. So if you're building like a 2 or 3 story apartment building with 3 or 4 units, you're not gonna have to build parking, but pretty much anything larger than that will require off-street parking, which adds dramatically to the costs. This has actually been an ongoing problem with the city for quite a while, where developers will build less housing if it means that the project doesn't hit that minimum of having to build parking. So, yeah.
Is this related to that? Because Karen also has a question. Okay, Karen, then Stuart. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you for channeling my thoughts during that presentation. So what I want to say in regards to the city of Yes should be of no surprise that this was very controversial in many areas of Queens, especially Eastern Queens and especially in Southeast Queens. And I'll preface it by saying that Southeast Queens has been the city of Yes because we've had more single family homes converted into multifamily basement apartments. Any vacant lot has had multifamily homes. And this has been done over the years without increasing transit options. And, you know, I know in the presentation it was said that commuter rail may be underserved. And I'm going to actually say, I don't know if that was chicken egg, but keep in mind that we have 1 hour headways most of the day. It's only during rush hour, I'd say before 9 o'clock, and then after 3 or 4, where we have more regular service, and it's limited. And we already have issues of cars parked to the hilt, to the extent that they become a hazard because you can't see at the corners, you can't safely turn. And so for this to work in other areas like where I live, other areas of Queens, other areas that are not well served, and they're really have a lot of multifamily rooming style housing and reliance on cars, that we need to see not just more bus routes, but like feeder shuttles or something to take people to the railroads, because it's not like Manhattan where we can just go and easily walk to a subway station. Our rail stations are further away. We haven't seen express, I don't want to say express bus service. That's another issue, having express bus. You know, like how you have select bus service? We don't have that in some of these areas of Queens and some of these other areas that can act as a faster service to the subway. And so to really sell this in the areas, you know, we need to think about other ways that transit can be increased, whether it's new lines, additional lines, more service. And I know that, you know, the MTA operations are pretty stretched, but this, as I said, this has been very contentious. People feel that elected officials listened and then decided not to listen and voted a different way without addressing these transit issues. Thank you.
And so that's sort of exactly what Benji is saying here, is that the additional transit riders that will be coming to the system can fund some of these improvements, that they are basically their own solution, that there will be more riders who will bring in more funds for the operations of the system, so that potentially with looking carefully at where they are and what the needs are, they could potentially be used to increase service frequency, that that those are the kinds of things that additional funding could be used for. In terms of additional routes, in the next little while, not this little while, but next little while, we'll hear more about the Queens bus redesign, and then the other boroughs, and then there will be more information about what is being done to improve connectivity to the railroads and the subways, so that there can be an enhancement of connectivity. Nassau County, Suffolk County, both looking at micromobility and mobility as a service, so that they can make those connections too. I'm getting that we've got to go from our chairs. But I do want to, before we go, I need to take a vote, a reaffirmation vote, to send our chairs back to the board. So this is a vote that we all took last year. That was to, that would send Randy as the chair of the Randy as the MTA board representative for Metro North Railroad Commuter Council, Jerry as the MTA board rep for the Long Island Railroad Commuter Council, and Andrew as the rep for the New York City Transit Rider Commuter Council to the MTA board. So may I have hands up, please?
So move.
Okay, movements, yes, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Second.
And anybody who did not send a proxy, who is not in person, Roz, you count as in person, please do so. You ask you to check off all 3 boxes and sign it and date it and send it back to me. Okay, you all need to go. Thank you. Learn much. I know that we have. Yes, Francis, Francis, because you're not in a publicly accessible
Thursday.
location,
Next Thursday.
you don't count.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll
but
send a proxy then.
Thank
Director.
you. Thank you.
Lisa, did you receive my proxy?
I did.
Thank
Yes. Yes, thank you. Larry, do you have a question, or are you raising your hand?
Well,
and
I was
jumping?
going to ask one question that somebody where I am right now who overheard part of the meeting wanted me to just mention that in regard to subways, he had the other day, he paid for the subway, went into the subway, trains were not running, and yet he had to come out of the subway, but he paid that fare. So he brought up to me and said that there should be a way that he should be able to get credited back for that fare that he paid for the subway because the subway was no longer running, that they canceled the F train apparently.
Yeah, so they should call, I don't even, they should call 511, or they should, I don't know, number is still 718-334-1234. That was.
Yeah, no, I told him to call customer service, but he said there should be a way that you should be able to, they should be able to unswipe you or something of that nature. I said, I don't know, if something like that even exists.
Swipe.
So,
There's no one swiping.
yeah. Okay, well, I just wanted to mention it, so I told him I would.
Yeah, I mean, if they have an Omni account, they could probably do something like that, but they would need to get in touch with customer service.
Okay, I just said I would mention it at the meeting, so.
Yeah, no, and you did. Thank you, Stuart. Yes, thank you.
So I don't know the legislation in a granular way, but like we do with regular developments, there are incentives for builders to provide access or links to train stations or transit facilities. So piggybacking on a point maybe Karen made, that, maybe there could be incentives for landlords to get greater density if they provided shuttles, or if they, depending on how close they were to the railroad rights of way, incentives for connections or, better mobility or handicapped access. I don't know if that was built into the.
It was not baked in,
Right.
but one of the recommendations that we make is to coordinate with the city, because there was a lot of coordination with the Department of City Planning and the City Department of Transportation. So that, I think that was, it's still a lot that's gonna take into rolling it out over time, but that should absolutely
incentives,
be,
yeah.
yeah, incentives
Right.
should definitely.
Whatever form they might be, you know, like
Yes.
what Karen was saying or what I'm saying,
Yeah,
you know.
no, for
right.
sure. Okay, Maddie,
Yeah, just to add something. First of all, just I want to be very brief because I know we're moving on to the businesses. I want to wish everybody a happy holidays, Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, New Year, and look forward to a great 2025. God bless you all. Thank you.
thank you, Maddie, and I think that's a perfect note to end on. Okay? Thank you so much. Second, thank you. We will let you know about next week's meeting.
Okay.
We're just having one right now. So I don't know that there'll be anything new. The next, that there is a MTA board meeting on Wednesday. There will be the next milestone in the congestion pricing lawsuits that we know of is December 20th. So that would be after the 19th meeting. There is potential for the New Jersey judge to do anything. There's no set date or time of when they may make a determination, hopefully before January 5th, but you never know. So we'll find out all at the same time. But we will convene with Andrew and see if it makes sense to bring everybody back in a week or give you as a gift that day back, which is kind of like what the staff would like.
I love
So
gifts.
yeah, but TBD, and preemptively, if we don't see you, very happy holidays and happy new year, but we'll be in touch and let you know. Everybody has received a copy of the meeting dates for next year. There's some changes that are not follow a regular calendar based on when that are based on when board meeting dates are for TRC and for a couple of other things for MNRCC and Long Island Railroad Commuter Council. You just keep on trucking. Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Happy, healthy.
Happy holidays.